The idea of original sin in Dostoevsky's subtle manner is that we're the sorts of creatures that, what did he say? We're ungrateful. That's the thing that primarily distinguishes us from animals, is we're ungrateful and that we can curse. That was what he thought made us different than animals. And that even if we got what we wanted materially, that wouldn't satisfy us because we're not the sorts of creatures that can be satisfied with material possessions, let's say, or material comfort, because it isn't even obvious that we're after comfort. I mean, what do you want? You want to just lay in a feather bed and eat peeled grapes all day? I mean, maybe for an hour or so, that might not be a bad idea, but, it's going to get dull pretty quick. You're going to go out looking for trouble. And it's certainly possible that the more material resources and the easier they were to get that you have at your disposal, the more creative ways you're going to find to cause yourself trouble when you go out and look for trouble. And that's a testament to the human spirit, and Dostoevsky knew this. It's like, well, whatever we're here for, it isn't the utopia of equal material distribution. We're not looking to be fed and asleep, And I don't know what it is that we're looking for. God only knows. Maybe what we're looking for is to continually keep looking, something like that. I mean, that's the sorts of creatures that we are. But the materialist philosophy is that, well, if you just provided for people economically, problem over. And no, wrong. I mean, most of you are, as given that you're going to be ill in one way or another, and that you're still subject to mortality and all of the terrible natural limitations that human beings are characterized by, you're about as well off as you're going to get. The economic data already show that once you have enough money so that bill collectors aren't chasing you, which basically puts you, say, at the kind of in the upper reaches of the working class or maybe the lower end of the middle class, something like that, that additional money has absolutely no effect whatsoever on your self-reported well-being, which is something like a combination of positive emotion and absence of negative emotion. So you might like to think that, if you were rich, your life would be better. And maybe it would be somewhat better, but it wouldn't be as much better as you might hope. And that's because you'd still have most of the problems that people have. You still maybe wouldn't get along with your sister, and you'd still get divorced, and maybe you'd even be more likely to. And there'd still be illnesses that would beset you. You'd be able to deal with them perhaps with some degree of more urgency. And you'd still have the problem with what the hell your life is for and what you're doing on the planet and how to conduct yourself in the proper way. And so we don't want to be too naive about materialism, even though we don't want to be ungrateful for its advantages. Marx also believed, well, I said this already, that history was basically characterized by the war of socioeconomic groups. That's been transformed more recently into the war of identity groups, which is the same damn thing, and it's the same old wolf in new sheep's clothing as far as I'm concerned, that, the best way to conceptualize human beings is, well, I don't know, whatever your damn identity is. Maybe it's sex for you, and it's ethnicity for you, and it's gender for you, and God only knows what it is for you, and, and that's who you identify with, and all there is in the world, and this is the postmodernist view, is hierarchies of people in these identity groups struggling for dominion. And that's a quasi-Marxist viewpoint. It's just a variant of the bourgeoisie versus proletariat theory of history, which is a foolish theory as far as I'm concerned, and certainly not one that we need to take forward into the 21st century, although we seem, destined to insist that we do so. He believed that the revolutionary overthrow of the oppressor class was necessary and morally demanded, and that turns out to be a little bloodier than I would say the typical Judeo-Christian ethic might require, because it doesn't require you to take up arms against your evil overlords and, well, put them in gulags and kill them by the millions, for example. And that, to me, seems to be an important difference. There's no, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, there's no guilt, there's no group guilt, right? You're guilty, and of different things, I presume, and that's your problem, but maybe you're also innocent. Who knows, But whatever It's on you. It's not a consequence of your racial heritage or your ethnicity or your gender, any of those things. It's between you and God, let's say, or it's between you and the state even, but at least it's between you and the state or God. It's not like, well, you know, your father was a factory owner, let's say your grandfather, and so it was perfectly reasonable during the Russian Revolution and the Red Terror to vacuum you up along with your whole family and do away with you because you'd been irredeemably tainted by your bourgeoisie past. So that's another place where Marxism and Judeo-Christianity are, they're not just different, like they're opposite. You know, it's not just variant 1 and variant 2. These are like seriously different ideas. And so here's another reason you can't be a Marxist and a Christian. And then there's the idea that, that Marx had, that religion was the opiate of the masses, which doesn't exactly sound like. I've always thought religion was the opiate of the masses, but communism, Marxism was the methamphetamine of the masses, let's say. Yeah, the meth of the masses. We had no idea with regards to opiates. So here's what Marx has to say about religion. The abolition of religion as the illusory happiness of the people is the demand for their real happiness. To call on them to give up their illusions about their condition is to call on them to give up a condition that requires illusions.